We'll continue with a very interesting startup talking about application of AI, and this is a subject which is very important in our industry, like the subject we just talked about. The focus is AI-protected shift planning. We're familiar with this very important subject. You're planning a shift, people call in that they can't come in, and you have to therefore be flexible, shouldn't be too static. And I'm happy to have a startup from Berlin that's called Shyftplan GmbH. Jan Martin Josen, the founder of Shyftplan, will explain how it works. I'm happy that you're here. Thank you. The floor is yours. Thank you. I'm happy to be here to talk at an application, a machinery trade show, to talk about software. We've seen software, but this is a little bit of a different type of software. My name is Jan Martin Josten. I'm founder and CEO of Shyftplan, and I actually come from the field of bioinformatics, algorithms, mathematic thinking. That's something I'm used to. And recently I've heard a lot about this number from our customers, 85%. If you walk around the shop floor, you might know what it's about. 85% OEE. That is, how efficient do I work? It is my work with my machines. You see a lot of machines here. They work efficiently. So the machines themselves are efficient. But how efficient then is your utilization of the machines? Well, that depends on a lot of other factors, not just the machines themselves. And that's why probably a lot of you are here to see the best machines. But orchestrating everything about that, around it, is important. How efficiently can you operate the machine? Any of you have 85% higher, you know you're in the Champions League, because there's one factor that is always forgotten very often. That's the human factor. So what's the biggest difference between a good shop floor and a moderate and a mediocre shop floor is the human factor, because you need the right people with the right training at the right time to run your shop floor well. Those are three requirements. First of all, you have to know how many people you need, you have to know what they have to be able to do, and you have to then coordinate it. And 90% of all corporate problems are communication problems, and the same is true here. You have to involve your people so that you have good shift planning. If you have a look at our market and have a look at a few numbers, well, these two things are something you're very aware of, but there are many, many skilled workers that are just lacking, not just in Germany, but around the world. Wherever you need highly qualified people, you just don't have enough of them, especially in Central Europe. It's due to the fact that these people are getting older. A lot of the people that have a lot of knowledge today will be leaving companies in the next 5 to 10 years. And the people that are left want more flexibility. As you can imagine, let's say you have somebody sitting in an office, he wants to be able to take Friday off or come an hour later, leave an hour earlier. It sounds nice for him, but that's not the reality of people working on the shop floor. They have to be there when the machine's running, because 85%, we want the machine to run efficiently, so the right people have to be there at the right time. That's the big challenge. And how can we bring these two worlds together? People who want to have self-determination, but you have to have an efficient machine running. Then on the other hand, we've got another challenge. The skills that people have nowadays are being replaced by other skills, because have a look around here. Automation on the shop floor, that's quite normal. It's been that way for 15, 20 years. We're automating as many processes as possible. So people don't just have one job. People have many jobs nowadays. That is to fix machines when there's a problem, and you need the right skill set for that. Things are changing, so you need a lot of upskilling, reskilling. And the people doing this, well, they're even more valuable, because if that person leaves or isn't there, a lot of machines come to a standstill. So you have to be an attractive employer for your people, but you've got to also develop them and develop their skills. Now, if you have a look at the next chart, you see the potential here. You see that there's a nice study by McKinsey about this. If you do the right shift planning, intelligent shift planning as we called it, that is shift planning that adapts to your processes in the factory and outside the factory, that is delivery problems, delivery bottlenecks, changes in orders, your people get sick, they want to trade shifts, you need an additional shift on the weekend. These are changes which mean that people have a different task or work at different times. So you've got to work intelligently here, and you've got to plan for that so that you don't have any delays in production. Because at the end of the day, you want to produce parts, you want to produce food, you want to produce something at a certain point in time. The machines are deterministic, people are not. So you've got to work with this intelligently. You've got a huge factor here that you can take advantage of in order to improve this. And if you have a look at that, well, you see there's a nice study on this from Gartner. Most people, most companies are aware of this. I'm not the first one to realize this. Most companies are aware of this, that they've got to do these things. So almost, well, half of big companies said they want to have intelligent and or automatic shift planning that they can invest in. So there's a big opportunity there, and many are aware of the opportunity, and this is exactly what we do here. Now, if you have a look at our customers, and I've been doing this now for 14 years with my team, so for 14 years we've been working in this market, and you can see that over time we've gained a lot of cool customers. ZF and Siemens Energy, these are companies that produce food and small batches and huge batches, mass production, and across the board we've got these companies. So basically what it's about is preventing unproductive times, which means that the employee is not there when you need him, or he's there when you don't need him. That's what you want to avoid. No, that's hard to measure. I had a project, and we asked the head of production, how much inefficient time do you have? We had to look at a table there, and it was 0, because no one in production will say, damn, that wasn't productive time. The production people always said, well, the machine is yellow, tomorrow it's blue. Nobody had anything to do when somebody was painting the machine, but would then have to find something to do for the people on the shop floor, but you've got to find something efficient for them to do. So there are some basic prerequisites that you've got to keep an eye on in order to make this work. So one of them is you have to have a shift model that can be flexible. If it's always one person at one spot doing the same thing, it's not flexible. That's not good for the employee, and it's bad for the company if you can't make that adaptable. There are flexible shift models, and a lot of things you can do to, first of all, model the shift planning, the core of it, and see what's going on, and then you do the planning around that, and you involve the people too. Because what's really important is that I, an employee, have to know what I want to do next week. And maybe I'll go on vacation, or maybe you can trade shifts with me. I've got to go to my son's soccer game on Friday. Can you take over for me? And then the company would say, no, I can't do that because I can't replace you. You know what the person will then do? He'll go find a different job because he knows what he's worth. So you've got to be able to adapt to these wishes, and that's necessary, and you're familiar with this from your own company. The question is, how can you model this? To what extent and how efficient can it be done? Because you can only allow these people to switch shifts if you can still continue with your production. So what's important here, if you look at shift plan, is that we've got 2 core products. We split the problem that I just told you about into 2 solutions. One is Shift Planner. Here we say, okay, I have to know who I've got. You can integrate SAP, Workday, UKG, and so on to get this. You get the people you want, you get the skills, and you get the work time intervals. That is, shift models, when can they work, full-time, part-time people. So you get that information at the same time from your production planning tool, SAP, PP, PPDS, whatever. You get the information about who you need with what skill, and you can then link these things intelligently together. And that's what our algorithm is about. We put a lot of effort to building the best algorithm to do the perfect shift plan. But as I said, that's top-down. We can do that. But in addition to that, we want to bring our people on board, your people on board. So you have to put some flexibility into the system. And then your people can be on the shop floor or calling in and say, we'd like to switch shifts. And these people then have self-determination because they can participate in shift planning. There's a nice study from a big German trade union that says, IG Metall, that says 65% of people are not happy with their shift planning. That's the worst possible grade they could give. What do they want? They want to have a voice in the process. They know exactly that they've got a shift, and the shift means you might have to work on the weekend, you might have to work at night. People know that, but they want to have a voice in the process. So they want to be able to switch shifts. They want to have an opportunity to do voluntary additional shifts if they feel like it, and this is what should be possible. We improve utilization, we cut HR costs, and machine productivity is maximized. Machine capacity is maximized. That's one problem and one solution for it. But then the other thing is, what do they have to do? And for that, we've got the shift skills. It's a nice matrix, better than usual. They know, you know exactly then who can do what and what tasks need what skills, and we can map one onto the other. It's like TSAT's certification, so that we know these are people that work on that. For instance, ZF, maybe they're building a control unit for a car. They have to know only qualified, skilled people work on that, and they have to be able to prove that. So we now know, okay, what person could do what, and when did he do work on what. So we can prove that we're completely compliant with all of the regulations. So we've got the right people at the right time with the right skills. And as I said, I've been doing this for 14 years. Now, in Shyftplan, up to 80,000 people are managed. 140,000 are on the platform. 80,000 of them come in every day and see how their Shyftplan is working. So a lot of people can do their shifts with this. One example is this. Jan Torno from Siemens Energy is in Berlin. He was one of our first industrial customers, and he did an opinion survey before and after. And if you look at it, you can break it down into 3 columns as to what the biggest difference is. The first difference is this.
Is the time that I spent on shift planning. So we cannot forget who was doing the shift planning. The leader of the group, the most valuable employee at the shop floor, is playing Sudoku for the big one. So he's trying to shift the shifts, maybe even with a magnetical board. So he's trying to come up with the best version of the shift plan, and it takes a lot of time. And as we did here, we can reduce that time because sometimes you need to get back and forth with colleagues, talk to them, but we have reduced that time to 2 hours. I think there's even more possible through automation, but that was the first step, what we achieved during the first year. The second is the utilization of machines. They were at 60%, that's okay. For market needs, that's okay, and we were able to increase that to 90%. Bottlenecks, we were able to level out. We knew that there were colleagues who's not ever going to come on Friday, so they were doing additional hours. And this was a production of major gas turbines. And the last factor, the third one, which is very close to my heart, is the how happy the employees are, satisfaction of the employees. They were at 60% before. 60% of the employees were satisfied with the planning process. So far, we were able to improve that to 98%. Nobody is earning more money or is working less. This applies to the planning process only. And how much people are able to participate in the planning process, and that really makes a difference. For Siemens Energy, at the same time, as I already mentioned, we got production data and employee data. So let's go through that again. I go to the factory. Today, Shyftplan knows what employee is there, what is the what's his contract, can he do night shifts, can he maybe only do jobs that are good, bad for his back. And from this information, what are his skills? And from that information, I get a shift plan. I understand I need this exact colleague. I have major gas turbines, major machines, so I need a lot of employees. I need, at the right time, the right person from a planning tool. I get that information, and then I can combine the information. And if we do that, our algorithm starts working, and it calculates which which employee is the best and has the right skills, because from SAP then we get the information on the qualifications of the employees. That's 10 generic qualifications, such as a first aid course, evacuation help course that someone did, and then on the other hand, of course, can he or she operate that machine named Fat Bertha. So is it the right colleague to operate this exact machine? And if we combine the two things, the result is what I already mentioned. We can increase productivity, we lower manual work, and everybody's more satisfied afterwards. One factor that shows us if a software is good, I think, is public ratings. As I already said, our app is mainly used by some people who plan in front of a computer, and many employees on their phones and phone apps have public ratings. Middle ranking of 2.5 stars is the usual ranking for apps like this. Most people hate their apps. They hate the apps that they need to use for their jobs, and we put a lot of effort and love into these apps so that they work well, because two things are important here. First, we came up with a great software. We came up with a software that people understand, that people like to use. People know how to use apps, and on the other hand, what we did is reflecting our emotions, because the colleagues can switch shifts, they can say, I want this shift, I want that shift, they can participate, and everything from their pocket. And I want to tell a little story here. In the very south of Germany, we did a project, and we went there for a first test of the project, and we asked the employees in a large forum, please tell us how you like our work. And an elderly man stood up. We were worried what he's going to say, and he said, my wife says we should keep the app. And we were like, his wife told him to keep the app? Well, these guys were famous for their garden parties, but this man always worked on the weekends, so his wife always had to ask him to switch shifts. Can we do the garden party or not? So what she did is get the ICANN link on her phone, and she always knew about his shifts. That way she never had to ask him again for his shifts, for planning the garden party, and that is just a great effect. And we didn't know that was going to happen, but that was great. But this is very eye-opening, because shift planning dedicates life. It dedicates whether I can go see my friends at night or pick up my children from school. So shift planning is extremely important, and shift plan gives people the participation in this process. And it's an automized and digitalized process, because I want to gain efficiency, and I also want to do a good thing for my employees. Now, that was a simple explanation, but the process is never that easy. You can get a new software on board, but the problem here is, how do I do that? And I had to learn about that. A colleague from McKinsey told me this. Change management is one of the most important things when you take a new software on board. So this is a USP of us. We have a great technological base. What I brought in here to say that we need great algorithms, we need great AI. That is what is in our hearts, but if nobody knows how to use the software, there is no use to that. So what we came up with the software, and the software lives off of the feedback of those who use it, so that we know how can we improve, and to combine that feedback to a best-of-breed software. So we bundle the knowledge and then make the standard software available to everybody. So we make use of the knowledge of the others for great shift planning. Now, our software works for manufacturing. There's 130 software solutions for shift planning in German, so there's a lot. But if you look at our USP, is that we know the industry, because that's where we're from and that's what we do. And then the last thing on the right here is training, best practices, and that is vocational training. So everybody who wants to take the software on board We invite them to come to our office, look at the software together. There's a generic software that we then optimize for an individual process. That is a challenge, but my colleagues do that every day. Right, and that is exactly what my wish is to do with every one of you, because it's in my heart. We are represented in hall number 6 in the startup area, or as I like to call it, the innovation area. Please come and see us, approach us. Thank you very much for your attention.
Mega, Jan-Martin. Mega, mega, mega.
Great, thank you very much. Q&A means that you insert your questions now on Slido. I have brought some questions too. Right, you have big names on your client lists already. So what are some practical experiences? I know that you have good reviews, but I'm not sure about the usage rates. What are practical experiences with your major clients? Yeah, this is very interesting because I come up with prognoses before we start a project. You can always split up employees into 3 parts, 25, 50 and 25%. 25% of people are motivated, they want change, they want new technology, they download the app, great. 25% say, oh, no, I don't want change, I hate that. And then 50% in the middle, they are who make the difference. You can convince another 25 of those, and they will download the app, and then that's great, and they will find out how to shift their shifters, and then things work out well. And then the other 25%, that's the challenge. That's the challenge, but if we convince the first 25% of these 50, the second 25% are usually not a problem. For NCF, for example, we're at 90+% of the people who really use our software, and the great thing is that they're really motivated. If we speak to them, we never have to hide, but they really want to talk to us. They really want to get a change, and that in itself makes a change. Shift planning changes the life of people, knowing when they need to be where, and if they have a say in that, that's great. So it's very positive.
Right. These are really huge companies like ZF. Does ZF sort of announce it publicly that they've got this new system? Unfortunately, I'm into this particularly, so I know how people feel about new things on the device, and not many people say, oh, well, yes, I want to use this straight away. So what do the companies do to motivate people? Because the benefits of the software, irrespective of the well-being of the employees, you'll only get the benefits if you have a high take rate. Absolutely. But one essential factor that you have to understand if you're doing your production in Germany, the Germans are experts when it comes to making processes difficult. This means that if I force you, or let's say I introduce some software and I force you to do it, and your smartphone rings on Sunday night, and I'm forcing you to come Monday morning. But the Works Council will have to complain about this because this was not allowed. So what's the solution? It's a voluntary offer. And this is really important in Germany. Such an app is a voluntary offer. You have a right to say, I don't want it. Then you have to be scheduled. You can say, okay, our software can do it. It's got the algorithm. You'll have it all for the next 365 days. Everything apart from that is an offer. And that's what we tell people. We tell people, okay, this is an offer for you. And the people who are not so motivated are usually convinced. But you can't force them to use it. So how does it work in such big companies? In one of the first sessions, we go to the Works Council and say, what's your plan? What do you actually do for your staff? Because there are several projects that are initiated by the Works Council. I was a bit surprised initially. I thought that the Works Council isn't interested in new software, but that's not true. Some don't have it, but many are motivated and are looking forward to changes. And the voices of staff say, we want better shift planning, more freedom. Those are the topics of the Works council. So bringing them on board is important. And there's a project phase that we do together with one or two project managers. We look at the different processes. We look at things that don't work all that well. And then after that, we write a project book and address the individual things step by step. Software integration comes first. Together with partners, we have a lot of experience. We are an SAP partner, and that cost me a lot of time and nerves, but SAP takes us along to customers. So they say to their customers, if you want good shift planning, then you can choose their system. And then after that, it's change management. You start with a small group, you check how it works, then you go to a bigger group and another bigger group, and then you've got a hockey stick rollout, more and more, until you really take people along. And one thing that we learned is we don't have to explain to the staff what will change. This is somebody who has to do it within the company. And this is much more authentic than if we told them. We train the trainers, we train the people to know what to do, and this is how the rollout actually works. Oh, great. Well, what about the pay model? What kind of pay model do you have in the background? How do the companies pay for this? Only if they have added value will they pay. Employees will get it. There's a price per month, and you have a licensing model, so there's not extra servers or hidden costs. The members of staff who are managed by us have a certain price. It's a price per month, which means you can only have your benefit if you administer the people, if you manage the people. So if you have 50 people, then the software will be a bit too sort of big for you. But if more people are on board, then it works really well. This is how our price model works. Right, thank you very much for that presentation. So this was a great innovation at the innovation stage. Go and see them in Hall 6 and talk to them and sign the contract.